Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. This year has been absolute chaos with the amount of catering gigs I've received. I don't often get requests for finger foods, but when I do, I usually add a pinwheel to the list just because it's an easy option, and you can make a lot of variations. So I figure it's about time to offer that variety to you. To get started, we need some ground pork rinds. I usually weigh my pork rinds, but this part of the recipe is from my friend Anita, or Ketogenic Woman. Go check out her channel, it'll be linked below. Set those skins aside, and up next we will be making a spread. I added 8 ounces of cream cheese and a quarter cup of full-fat Greek yogurt to a blender. I season this up with a half teaspoon of black pepper and a half teaspoon of salt. Give this a blend for about 1 minute or until it's silky smooth. You should definitely give it a little lick. Put this in a bowl and set aside while we get our pasta dough tortilla dough pastilla made up. Per Anita's instructions, get a blender or food processor and add in 3 eggs, 4 tablespoons or 2 ounces of cream cheese, 3 tablespoons of ground pork rinds, and 1 tablespoon of grated Parmesan cheese. Give this a blend for about a minute or until homogeneous. It'll be quite liquidy, but that's perfectly fine. That's liquid magic you're looking at. Pour this onto a silicone mat lined baking sheet. You can also use parchment paper here. Then place it into an oven that's set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 to 12 minutes or until the top of the sheet is set. Carefully remove and let cool for a few minutes. I'm impressed every time I make this. I'll be making 2 different pinwheels here, so I'll cut this down the middle. I will also go ahead and give these a preemptive roll just in case they stiffen up later and decide they want to crack. After a couple of minutes like this, we can start the assembly. The first thing we should do is put down 3 to 4 tablespoons of our spread and smooth it edge to edge. I can hear the comments already. What the hell is the green stuff on that plate? It's basil, you animals. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. I'm not coming down to the Burger King to slap the dicks out of your mouth, so leave me and my basil alone. The process is quite simple. Just lay down ingredients in layers and roll it up. This pepperoni and basil combo is perfect. After you've rolled it up, flip it so that the seam side is up. Place a toothpick at both ends. Now, use your index finger to space toothpicks evenly. We can finally cut these through the middle of each toothpick spot. Now that is a hypnotic sight. Let's go ahead and repeat similar steps for the second one. This one is simply a ham and Swiss pinwheel. I had the idea in the middle of filming to add some ground pork rinds to the cream cheese. I was feeling nostalgic about those after-pull sandwiches smashed with potato chips, and this did a nice job filling that nostalgia hole. If you get a little overzealous stuffing your pinwheel, you might get a tear like I did, but no worries. Our spread acts like a glue. Follow the exact same toothpick procedure as before and slice. This was minimal effort and it looks fantastic. I feel like these would be a great meal prep option for a few days of cold lunches at work. Maybe even a snack for your kids. No matter what you do with them, just remember to fill your nostalgia hole from time to time. Alright, here's the scenario. You get a phone call.
Meeting at the house to watch this cricket match.
Alright.
Everyone's hanging out and bringing snacks, and we'd love to have you come hang out.
Okay, I guess I'll come watch cricket.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of chips and dip, so bring something you can eat. I know you're on that funky ass diet.
Damn, what kind of food works with cricket matches? I guess I'll just do something Cajun? Everybody likes that. Good thing I'm already cutting up these scallions. So, chips and dip. What else do I have? Oh, cool, I have some andouille sausage. Let's get this diced nice and small. Cut some planks, like a lot of planks. Then matchsticks. And dice. Nice. I need to cook this, but I'd really like it to be crispy. Let's just see what we get with a medium heat for a while. What else do I have lying around? There we go. Cream cheese I forgot to put up yesterday. Good thing it's pretty stable. I'll go ahead and use both blocks as I don't really have a purpose for it right now. And let's add some Cajun flavors. Celery seed, some cayenne, smoked paprika. And that's all I've got. At least it tastes good. Garlic powder. Onion powder. Maybe some of those scallions. And a few dashes of crystal. I want this to be dippable even if it's cold. How about we add some warmed up chicken broth too? There we go. And then this andouille. It's like Rotel, but if I found it drinking a hand grenade on Bourbon Street. Alright, just give this a little mix. Damn, I'm gonna have to break out a whisk. There we go, much better. Let's get this into a nicer bowl. A little smoked paprika for contrast, some more scallions for color, and why not some hot sauce flavored pork rinds. One final step before I head out, just to make sure, you know, it's up to par. Oh man, this is pretty good. I hope I don't eat all of it before I get to watch this game. I hope. Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. Jalapeno poppers. One of the ultimate trash food, right? What if I told you we can make a trash food a carnivore person's treat? Well, that's what I'm telling you. I'm also telling you that if you like this video and subscribe to the channel, you'll receive 1 year of good luck. Gather around the campfire and prepare yourself for a story on how to make these tasty morsels. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to stuff jalapenos with ground beef and cream cheese and call it carnivore. I mean, I should, just because I'd love to read the comments about how it's not. Instead, I'll create the vessel to hold the cream cheese and a bit of jalapeno. Grab yourself an amount of foil and start balling them into the shape of halved jalapenos. Don't eat these as they'll be spicy on your teeth and nut your tongue when you bite into them. For our replacement protein jalapeno, place 1 pound of ground beef into a bowl. Season that with 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Give this a mix with your bare hands until homogeneous. Once mixed up, you're going to grab about 2 ounces of your seasoned meat and give it a gentle pressing. Drip this over your jalapeno mold and press in gently to shape around it. Pick it up, examine it. Mine was looking a bit girthy in spots, so I pulled a bit of the excess off. Once you've got all of these beefy pino molded, you can throw them into an oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 to 7 minutes or until firm to the touch. Side note, there's enough beef here to make 8 of these shells, so proceed with the second round if you want more. Next up, grab a food processor. I pulled out my old friend 1.5 cup mini food processor and added in about 6 ounces of cream cheese, and then follow that up with the star of the show, 1 jalapeno. If you do not want to consume jalapeno, that's totally understandable. Cream cheese and beef is awesome on its own, but if you do, process this until you get a light green and spicy cream cheese. Now, we also have the predicament of fried versus bacon-wrapped jalapeno poppers. So, I decided to do a few variants. If it's not obvious as to what to do next, have some strips of bacon ready and begin to fill your beefy pinos with your cream cheese. For your bacon wrap variations, just wrap it up the best you can. I do that by laying a strip down and folding it up. The other one we're doing will be a quote-unquote fried type, or normal, so these will just fill with the cream cheese. While I try to hide my strip of snacking bacon for later, I'll let you know that you need to put these in the freezer for about 10 minutes just to let them firm up a little bit. While those are in the freezer, let's set up our standard breading station. Crack 2 eggs into a bowl and add in 1/4 cup of heavy cream, half and half, or milk. Whisk this until homogeneous. Grab yourself a plate and lay out about 3 ounces or 1 bag of ground pork rinds. I like to season mine with a little black pepper, but you can leave these plain if you want to. After your 10 minutes are up, it's time to get breading. Using a wet hand, we'll start with a bacon wrap popper and drop it down into our milk wash. Coat that evenly and let the excess drip off before placing it into your pork rinds. Coat this evenly again and set that into a parchment-like baking sheet with the rest of his friends. Next up, grab a plain Jane beefy cheese boy and repeat the process. It's like a perfect little package of flavor that Guy Fieri would be proud of to call gangster. Place this into an oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. The quote-unquote normal breaded ones take about 7 to 9 minutes to get crispy, and both of the bacon-wrapped ones take about 15 to 17 minutes to get crispy. And they are done. Let's start off with the quote-unquote normal one. Crispy, creamy, beefy. Honestly, it's a great representation of a jalapeno popper. Next up, the bacon-wrapped. Rich and chewy from the bacon. I dig it, but it's borderline too rich. Finally, the breaded bacon-wrapped monstrosity. Again, rich and chewy, but the crunchy exterior helps you forget about how rich it is. All 3 of these were really tasty, but the winner in my book is the quote-unquote normal one. Try all 3 of these out and let me know what you think in the comments. See y'all next time. Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef, aka Cold Cut Comboer. You ever just wanted a cold cut sandwich but in a different form? Then boy, do I have the recipe for you. The taste of ham and turkey with mustard brings me right back to my childhood, and I wanted to recreate that here. I tried to get as creative as possible, so I hope you enjoy it. A quick disclaimer, the cheese sauce I make in the video is not how I want you to make your cheese sauce. Please refer to the written recipe to make a much better and creamier sauce than I did. Anyways, let's get started. Pull out some Colby Jack and sharp cheddar cheese. I won't judge you for buying the pre-shredded stuff. As you'll see here, I have to get creative and shred mine using a mandolin. It's not ideal, but I'm not going to complain. I should have got the pre-shredded stuff. If you're going to follow in my footsteps, please be super careful. I've seen many fingertips lost to these things. Not personally, but from gratuitous amounts of YouTube kitchen accident videos. Next up, let's take care of these deli meats. Feel free to dice yours or tear it. I just took the entire slab and shredded it. I wanted it to mimic the lettuce on a sandwich, so I cut it rather thin to add the volume I wanted. You should give it a little taste to make sure it's ham. Yep, it's ham. Let's do the same for the turkey real quick like. Alright, the next item is optional, but if you can handle it, I implore you to add it. The basil adds such a nice complexity to everything at the end, and it's so worth it. Remove your leaves from the stem, and place all of your small leaves into the biggest one and roll it up like drugs. Slice this into thin strips. This is called a chiffonade. Okay, let's take care of these chips. I suggest you lay down some parchment paper on your baking sheet for this one. I grabbed some fairly inexpensive hard salami that's also probably cut just a little too thick. Lay these out on as many pans as needed. If you find thinner sliced salami, I suggest you cut your cook time by about 2 minutes, maybe even more. But for now, throw these into an oven that's set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 minutes or until your salami has darkened in color. While those are in the oven, let's make this mustard cheese sauce. Don't forget, the better sauce recipe is in the description. But for mine, I added 2 cups of half and half into a pot set over medium-high heat. I got this to a bare simmer before turning the heat off and removing it from the eye. I added in 2 tablespoons of yellow mustard and then slowly started whisking in my Colby Jack. I seasoned this with a half teaspoon of salt and a quarter teaspoon of black pepper. Alright, by the time this is thickened, your salami chips should be done. And as you can see, I made a ton of them. And yeah, a little floppy, but they're still hot and cooking. I even mine out just a little bit before adding my toppings. Some ham, some turkey, and some shredded cheddar. I placed that into the oven that's still warm for about 5 minutes to get the cheese melted. Once melted, I topped it with my mustard cheese sauce. And finally, some basil. Look at how damn tasty this looks. Let's take this first bite, which is for my Patreon community. Oh damn, this mustard cheese sauce is fantastic. It works so well with just everything. And the basil comes through so nicely and makes it just a touch lighter. Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. I don't know about you, but sausage balls have always been a part of my family holidays for as long as I can remember. In fact, I think they're the first thing I remember cooking because nobody wants to sit around and make 500 of these tasty morsels by themselves. So, if you're in the mood for a tasty treat, grab your ingredients and maybe some friends or family and start rolling up something delicious. To get started on this one, I suggest removing any watches and rolling up those sleeves because it will get a little messy. For this recipe, you'll need our good old friend ground pork rinds in the amount of 3 ounces, 8 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese, 1 pound of breakfast sausage, and 2 eggs. There's really no wrong way to do this. As long as you have your ingredients ready and some clean hands, you can start mixing and rolling. Literally just add your ingredients to a bowl and begin to mix. Just make sure you don't get any unwanted ingredients such as eggshell like I later found out that I had in mine. I suggest mixing and meshing by hand for about 3 to 5 minutes just to make sure everything is incorporated. It should look a little something like this when combined. Scrape off the excess hand dough back into the bowl and wash up. Grab yourself a standard size cookie sheet and rip off some parchment paper. Get it laid out and avoid the GoPro attached to it. If you want to help this along, dip your hands in water periodically to keep the dough from sticking. Now, just simply grab an amount of dough and roll them out. That's really it. It's just as easy as making meatballs, but the outcome is so much more special. Once you have all of your batter rolled out, throw your balls into an oven set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 22 minutes. You can absolutely cook them a bit longer if you want to. The longer they cook, the toastier the cheese on the outside will get. Once they're out, let them cool at room temp for about 10 minutes. Then set up an elaborate presentation and stack them up. Here's a little close-up of the inside texture. And this first bite is for my Patreon community. These are super tasty, rich and toasty. When they're made with flour, they're a little more toasty, but these still have a nice toasty quality about them. Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef, aka Cheesy Peasy Lemon Squeezy. Do you ever have severe cravings for something that you suddenly realize you haven't had in a while? I did, and that craving was mozzarella sticks. I'm sure you know what I'm going to do here. And you're correct. I'm going to coat cheese in pork rinds. I thought this was going to be a super easy one to make too, but it's more finicky than I was expecting. Come along with me and see what I did here. Whoa, where am I? Where are all the stainless tables, and why does it feel kind of like a dungeon? Weird. For these cheese sticks, we're going to use string cheese. I'm only doing this because I don't feel like cutting cheese logs. Feel free to cut your own cheese if you want to. Like I said, I'm definitely using pork rinds, but I'll also be using wisps. The idea of breading cheese with more cheese just made me feel too excited to not give it a try. Just throw these into a food processor or blender and grind them into crumbs for a cheesy panko. Let's get our bag of ground wisps and pork rinds into 2 separate bowls. I used about 6 ounces of ground pork rinds for 8 to 10 cheese sticks. To the wisps, add in 1/4 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and to the pork rinds, add in a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. You don't have to add this if you don't want to, but it's definitely going to give your cheese sticks that familiar flavor. Mix both of these up and let's get our wash ready. Crack in 2 eggs and pour in a 1/2 cup of heavy cream into a bowl. Give this a healthy whisking. Finally, we need to have something to catch these breaded cheeses on. So place a plate at the head of the line here. Grab a cheese and slap it into your cream mixture. I think I'll go the wisp ones first as it's definitely the wild card. When you make mozzarella sticks with normal breadcrumbs, you usually double coat with the crumbs. I tried this with the wisps, and after doing it, it's not worth it. First off, it's really hard to get them to stick, and second, I pretty much use an entire bag of wisps on a single cheese stick. It's kind of mind-boggling, but pretty cool at the same time if you ask me. Since I didn't learn my lesson with the wisps, let's just go ahead and double coat one of these with pork rinds too. Same thing, everything just kind of wanted to peel off. But I got it on, and for the rest I'm just going to give them a single coating. Ah yes, much better. Okay, I won't bore you and finish the rest of these up off screen, but that means it's time to fry. Today I am using ghee, mostly because it was the most affordable oil I was willing to fry in. But it also added a fantastic flavor I wasn't expecting. In a pan, add in about 1.5 cups of ghee or fat and bring to about 325 degrees Fahrenheit. I achieved my heat by setting it to medium-low. You could test the oil by dropping in a little of your clumped up pork rind mixture and see if it sizzles. If it does, you can now carefully lay these into your oil away from you. If there's any exposed cheese, it'll likely leak out a bit, but it'll also create its own crust. Let this cook on one side for about 1 minute before gently turning. If it's stuck to the bottom of the pan, carefully scrape it off with your tongs or a heat-proof spatula. These should take no longer than 2 minutes to cook. Carefully remove them from the pan and allow to drain on paper towels. If you have any of that break on you when taking them out, that's your surprise to yourself now. Enjoy it, you don't get many. The best thing about these is that they stayed crispy the entire time. I think the ghee had something to do with that. Once they're cooked, plate them up and give them a sexual cheese pull. I'm going to eat this first one for my Patreon community. If you're looking for a way to support me, this is a great way to do so. The link's in the description below. Yep, that's just a straight up tasty mozzarella stick, and I'm super stoked on it. Let's taste this cheese on cheese action next. I was honestly a little bit stunned by this because of how it tasted. It basically tasted like Cheez-Its with a gooey center. Hey there my meaty friends, this is Reed aka CarnivorousChef, and today we're making carbonara deviled eggs. I went to a Christmas party recently and I was supposed to bring a dish and I was going to bring dip or just something like that, and I was just sitting there and I was like, what's a good side dish? Like deviled eggs, and then what's something interesting I could do with deviled eggs? And I came up with carbonara. I was just trying to think of what yolks and blah could do together, and this is just what popped up. That night they turned out really good. I made them again. still turn out pretty damn good. Finally have a written recipe for it, and that'll be down below like always. And before we get started with this recipe, please do me a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, share the video with your friends if you enjoyed it, try out the recipe. That's probably my main thing I want you to do, but I'm trying to do all this other stuff to make the YouTube algorithm happy. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. To start this one, I'm going to show you how Chef John from Food Wishes taught me to boil eggs. Grab yourself a pot or a pan and add in about 1 inch of water. Place the pan over high heat and bring it to a hard boil. Once it's boiling, carefully place your eggs in. If you drop one in and it starts to get a little too excited, pull it out real quick and replace it with another less cheerful egg. You can cover this with a lid if you have one, but I don't, so I just used another pan. You want to steam this for about 12 minutes. Let's set up an ice bath for their after sauna session. This is what's called shocking the eggs, and it lets them know that they're about to be eaten without actually having to say it. Now that we have existential eggs, we need to get some bacon, preferably pancetta, and cut it into lardon. Now that you've got a solid lardon, show it off by throwing it into a pan over medium-high heat along with about a quarter cup of water. We add the water because this will allow for maximum extraction of bacon grease. While we're at it, add in about a half teaspoon of coarse ground black pepper. I enjoy a really peppery carbonara, so feel free to reduce the pepper content if you want. This time, I suggest that you cook your bacon until crispy. We'll be blending it up later and want it to stand out with its texture. The cooked components are done, so we can work on some assembly. Let's crack those eggs open. I like to crack the egg all the way around, on top, and on the bottom. I'm not sure if it's from being steamed or how I crack the eggs, but the shells strip away about 67% all the time. Looky here, perfect. Here's a closer look for those that need it. Here's an even closer look so that you can see the pores of the egg. Honestly, I'm impressed that I peeled that with one hand. So I'm going to make these almost like I'd make an actual carbonara, by emulsifying egg yolks and cheese. Please follow my words and written recipe as I went buck wild in the video section of this with my portion sizes. To blend, you'll want to add in 3 egg yolks, half your cooked bacon, 1 ounce of grated Parmesan cheese, and 3 tablespoons of bacon grease that is still relatively warm. Oh, almost forgot to get the other egg yolks in there. Add all of your boiled egg yolks. Put this into a blender and blend on low until everything is smooth and homogeneous. In the recipe below, I'll be sure to give you measurements for a 12-pack of eggs. After it's blended, taste for salt and pepper and adjust as you see fit. Mine was perfect. Scoop this out into a piping bag or a Ziploc bag that badly wants to be a piping bag when it grows up. Cut the tip off and pipe in your mixture. You can go pretty tall with these because there's plenty of extras in the yolk mixture. Top this with the rest of your crispy bacon and finish it off with some freshly cracked black pepper. And there it is, carbonara in side dish form. You could definitely cream this out with some cream cheese if you want, and if you find yourself with way too thick of an egg mixture, add a little splash of heavy cream because that goes a long way. Hope you enjoyed this one and see y'all. Hey there, my meaty friends, this is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. If it looks like I'm in a dungeon right now, don't worry, I'm not, I'm just in a dark garage. But anyways, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a dip. I was kind of aiming it towards this big game. I don't know if I can actually say the name of it and be demonetized or not, so I'm just not going to say it. It's a football game that's happening in February that a lot of people want to watch. I had this recipe in mind just for like parties and things like that, and I thought it'd be a good one for that game. It's a super simple dip recipe, but I think people that aren't even on this diet will actually really enjoy this one. So if you end up making this and you bring it to a party, I suggest bringing yourself some pork rinds and maybe finding some like cheap bread to cut thin and toast it to serve along with it. I think you'll really impress a lot of people. And before we start, I'm gonna get you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in supporting it, there's a link down below to join as a channel member or join my Patreon community. To start this one, you'll need about 1 pound of shaved steak. If you can't find shaved steak, you can cut either ribeye or sirloin against the grain as thin as you can. And if you really want to go for it, steakums will be my last option, but it's also acceptable. This is some shaved steak that I get from Aldi, and it's usually rather large, so I'm going to have to give it a nice rough chop. And by rough, I mean wide cuts. We don't want this to turn into ground beef. Once it's chopped up, preheat a pan over medium-high for just a minute or two and add in all of your beef. We'll go ahead and season this up with about a half teaspoon of salt. Let this cook for about 3 minutes, mixing occasionally or until most of the pink from the meat is gone. Set aside and pull out a block of Swiss cheese. You can see that it's Swiss by the holes in it. Can you see it? I see it. Grate your cheese however you want, but I'm going to slap mine against a box grater and go to town. You'll want to grate the entire block. Set this aside and let's start assembling. Place an oven-safe pan over medium heat and add in an 8-ounce block of cream cheese. Season this up with 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of granulated onion, a half teaspoon of granulated garlic, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Start chopping all of this up and then have a brief panic because you think you're burning your cream cheese. Quickly, get the meat into the pan before... Okay, we're fine. Just breathe. When your meat gets into the pan, the little bit of moisture from it should help the cream cheese to melt a little quicker. Just keep mixing this around until you no longer see chunks of cream cheese. Once you're happy with how it looks, add in about 2/3 of your Swiss cheese and mix that in as well. Once it's mixed in, smooth out the top and add the rest of your Swiss cheese to it. Place this whole thing into an oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 11 to 14 minutes or until the Swiss cheese is nicely brown. Get this onto a tray alongside some of your favorite pork rinds and admire your work by giving it a taste. Creamy and beefy is an understatement here. If I was eating bread, I think I could slap this right into a hoagie roll and be fine with calling this a normal cheesesteak sandwich. But alas, I'm more than happy to enjoy it with my crunchy skins.